Do you think that as this plays out over the course of summer, that we're going to see potentially Liz coming unstuck or Rishi coming unstuck if they can't maintain an air of authority and authenticity?
Well, firstly, it's good to be with you again, Alex. I think the pressure is definitely on Rishi Sunak to close that monumental gap in the polls that we saw yesterday. He's trailing Liz Truss now by about 24 points. So he's really going to have to, pull something out of the bag to close it. And on the other hand, of course, Liz Truss is really going to be doing anything she can to avoid any gaffes, any Theresa May style, mistakes on the campaign trail, trying to really convince and convey to those Conservative members who are very on side with her at the moment that actually she can be trusted to be competent and to be capable in office.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Theresa May. I mentioned her in my intro because that was a pretty rapid fall from grace, wasn't it, for Theresa May during that election campaign when everyone had heard her speeches, the cut of her jib, liked what she had to say. But when all eyes were on her and she was the focus of attention, it all started to fall apart for her, didn't it? Is there a risk that that could happen to Liz Truss?
Well, it's an interesting one. I've spent this week talking to MPs and advisors in and around Westminster, and you hear two different things. The pessimists will say Liz Truss is a reboot of Theresa May. She's Theresa May 2.0. This is all going to be a disaster if she wins the leadership. But then there are actually others who offer a more nuanced take, and I think I'm probably in this camp. And they say, look, actually, Liz Truss and her team are aware of the mistakes that Theresa May made, and what they're going to do instead is promote what you might call a cabinet of all the talents. She's going to really propel other ministers forward and do what Theresa May never really managed to do, which is present a united front, a cabinet with Kemi Badenoch in it, a cabinet with Suella Braverman in it, a cabinet with maybe Nadine Zahawi or Michael Gove, to try and bring all of those big Conservative heavyweights into the fold and say to the country, actually, this is a very different Conservative party from what you've had previously.
It's interesting because Dominic Cummings has sort of, been dropping his Dom bombs and making mischief on Twitter by suggesting Liz, who he calls a human hand grenade, is potentially being quietly backed by Boris supporters because they think she might self-detonate and pave the way for his return. Do you think she has got that presence, that authority to stand up on the world stage, go to G7s and have everyone convinced that Britain is a big world power?
Well, look, I think we can all see what we see. I think Liz Truss is somebody who has government experience, cabinet experience, has done many of those international set pieces before. She's not the world's most charismatic politician. She's probably not the world's greatest communicator. But what has encouraged Conservative MPs and politicians, some politicians over the last week, is really watching Liz Truss unload her political guns on Rishi Sunak in that final debate that we saw. And there are people who've been saying to me this week, Alex, that, look, if Liz Truss can turn and hold the ground against Rishi Sunak, pushing back against his attacks that she wasn't a genuine Brexiteer, then she can turn her guns on Keir Starmer and the Labour Party and give them a good go before the next general election. That's what you will hear among some Conservative MPs in Westminster.
Matthew Goodwin, fantastic having you back on the programme for your always amazing insights. Well, also joining me on the show as my presenter friend, creaking on that high stool in the corner there.
God,
it's
sorry.
Dawn Neeson, former editor of the Daily Star. Every time in the middle of saying something, I can see you sort of...
It's not me, it's not my bones, although it could be at this time of the week. It is actually the chair, by the way. So if you hear a creaking, it's definitely the chair, honestly.
When I'm talking about creaking, do you think these are particularly solid candidates we've got to be the next Prime Minister?
Oh, gosh, does anyone? I really wanted this to work just for the sake of this country, and having strong leadership and a strong opposition would be nice as well. But I just am not filled with hope. Doesn't spring eternal on this one, does it? And I agree a lot with what Matthew was saying there as well. I mean, to be fair to Liz, she has done quite well on the international stage already. She might not have the personality of Boris, but then what do we want? Do we want personality or do we want politics? we went for the policy, the personality, and look where that got us. Not in a great situation with Boris. Great personality, great charisma, but we are now where we are. I just wish Liz, talking about what Judy was saying as well, I wish she would find her own, be Liz.
Her own rhythm.
Don't try and be Margaret Thatcher Mark II. I mean, even
creepy, isn't it?
It is. It's even dressing the same. The pussy bow blouse and the navy suit and even the helmet hair thing was going on.
Lego lady hair.
Yeah, exactly. So just leave that and just be Liz. And I noticed last week she did soften it a bit. She started looking a bit not like pound shop Margaret Thatcher. I'm sorry, I don't mean that to be horrible, but it probably sounds it. But a bit more like herself. And I think Matthew made a very interesting point that in the first debate, she came across as very stiff, very wooden, very unconfident. But in that second debate, by taking on Rishi the way she did, I thought that did her a lot of favours. And you did warm to her then, because I think she showed her strength there. And I think there is still, it's not the Iron Lady, but I think there's still there. But, I mean, Rishi, you compared him to a Butlins Redcoat, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's cheesy, isn't it?
It's great, yeah. I mean, it's a great comparison. To me, Alex, he reminds me more of a meerkat. He like pops up, hi, I'm Rishi, vote for me. And it's like that sort of thing. And I just wonder how fake that actually is. I mean, I get the impression there's sort of, he goes, behind the scenes and turns this little grouchy, well, I didn't like that. And it's like, as I said, and what is really annoying, and I'm sure everyone watching at the moment will find the same thing, is they're turning on each other like rats in a sack.
Oh, it's only going to get worse.
And this is the thing I think all of us are finding frightening. We just want now someone to steady the ship. And I don't think we're going to get that, Alex. And that is what is the most terrifying thing.
It is indeed. Dawn, thank you ever so much. Try not to creak there.
Sorry.